Hello everybody and welcome back. I am Carrick, so we're going to be continuing on with this beginner tutorial series for Europa Universalis 4. For complete beginners, this is no DLC. We are playing as France, updated for 2021 with the major 1.31 patch that has come out, and the Leviathan DLC. But again, we're playing without the DLCs here, just for people that are brand new to the game and trying to get a sense of whether or not they'll enjoy the game or not. And then from there, they can maybe get some DLCs or not. So we're playing as France, and honestly, we've just so many things have blossoming. One of the tricky things about this game, very, very tricky to teach this game. And I think last time we kind of dipped into some things, we kind of went down the rabbit hole on a couple less important things. And hopefully we can sort of ground ourselves here and get going on sort of the key thematics and keep kind of moving thematically. Moving forward without getting too bogged down, because one of the things that makes the reason why this game is so difficult to learn, understand, and even teach is everything is so intertwined, right? It's very hard to explain one element of the game and system of the game without having the context from other aspects of the game. So we're really trying to make sure that we're building things up and layering things up as a foundation and layering on top of that in such a way that we have the context to understand what we're talking about, rather than just sort of like making assumptions or constantly crisscrossing back and forth. Like we were reading some things about money and manpower. We haven't even talked about those currencies, those resources. We don't know anything about them, but it's like they're just already seeping into some of the discussion, right? So this time we're definitely going to want to like take a look at our economic situation, because we looked a lot at our ecosystem, our diplomatic ecosystem. We looked at some of the major nations that surround us and how they feel about us. We sent a diplomat off to get an alliance with Castile. We've set up our rivalries. We are rivaled to Burgundy, England, and the Ottomans. Although the Ottomans are so far away, we're not really that concerned about them. We have actually extra diplomats, and some of these diplomats can actually be used as spies if we wanted to use them in such a way. Maybe we want to send a spy to England. Let's send a spy to England. Sorry guys, I kind of clicked that kind of quick, didn't I? Let's click on England. Let's go to their diplomacy tab. And instead of doing, positive relationships, like offer an alliance that they totally won't accept, make them a vassal that they won't accept, and improve, there's no hope in improving our relationship with them because they're at minus 200. They hate us. That's not going to change. You try to request a royal marriage with them. They don't want that. They don't want any of this. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the covert actions and build a spy network with England, just so that we don't have any lazy diplomats, right? We don't want any lazy diplomats. Speaking of royal marriages, however, maybe we should get some royal marriages with our own subjects. That could be good, and to improve relationship with our subjects and make sure that we have a good chance of getting heirs for our kingdom and stuff. When our own, just having royal marriages just sort of locks in it doesn't create an alliance, but it locks in sort of, it's a different kind of treaty. And having it with your subjects will make it more likely that they'll stay loyal to us. So yeah, I think we'll want to get royal marriages with our subjects. We know that Orleans is a subject of ours. We know that all these little nations in here are subjects of ours. All of these ones in sort of this little French area. Oh, not counting these guys. Nevers is actually, they're a subject of Burgundy. These guys are a subject of Burgundy, right? If we go back to the diplomatic screen, we can see they're over here, connected over here. But if we go to ours, we can see all these little ones in here are our subjects. So let's get a royal. We'll want a royal marriage with Castile, but I don't think they'll accept it quite yet because we just sent them a diplomat. So there's a cooldown every time you send a diplomat, an emissary somewhere. There's a little bit of a cooldown. You have to wait a month to send them another one. So let's work on a different nation here and send Orleans a royal marriage request. Hey, they accepted it. Fantastic. So these diplomats are on their way back home. This diplomat is going to be persistently building up a spy network in England. And as they work on that, building up that network, that espionage network, we'll be able to take, it says we'll get 2 points every month. By the way, part of that is enhanced because we have a rivalry. So the rivalry is making it so that we are more easily building up a spy network in England. So the rivalry, again, helping us do espionage and disrupt England because we have that justification as being rivals with them. So the spy network is going to build up 2 every month, and then eventually we can spend that currency. It's a currency that we'll be able to spend to do covert actions against England. And we'll wait for that to accumulate a little bit to see what we kind of want to do with that. Because we don't know exactly what we're going to need to do or want to do there. So that's a summary of kind of some of the things, wrapping up some of the things that we were doing at the beginning of the first episode. Now let's look at our economy here. So we're going to click on this tab here. We've learned a lot about, this is talking about advisors, right? And if we read this really, really carefully, it says that per month, these guys take a monthly allowance. They cost a certain amount of money to hire. There's a monthly allowance. You can see that some of these guys that are more expensive, right? This guy's 4 ducats per month, but there's a 2 here. We haven't even talked about what these advisors really fully do, but we know these guys are expensive, right? And the game's telling us that, hey, we have free advisors out, so you probably do want advisors advising and doing whatever advisors do. And the game's warning us that, hey, maybe you do want advisors. Let's go to our economy tab, though. This is the 4th tab over. Let's click on this and let's see what the deal is. Holy cow, we're only making 2 ducats a month. So if we were to hire this person here, Jacques Courier, I'm not going to say these names correctly, but if we're going to hire this master of mint, right, who reduces yearly inflation by 0.1, don't know if that's important or not, but could be important. He's going to be 2 ducats a month. He's going to be 7 ducats to hire, but 2 ducats a month. That would be our entire allowance. That would be our entire balance right now, quite literally, which is kind of insane. So we could look at our total income and our total expenses, and in general, and this creates our balance sheet here. We can see the ways that we're making money. We're making 9 ducats a month from taxation. We're making some from production, trade. We're making some from vassals. And we are also, those are the 4 main ways that we're making money for a total of 18 ducats. Over here, we're spending a certain amount of ducats. And in a basic sense, right, taxation, that's something that changes as we acquire new lands, as we develop the lands that we have. It makes sense that the taxations, the wealth of the provinces will grow and we'll gain more taxes. And if we expand our country, if we take back more, like all of the taxation of these lands here that are rightfully French are going to England, because England controls these bits of land. So if we take back the French lands, that will be a huge boon to our economy, because we'll be able to leverage the production and taxation of these regions and also the trade power of those areas. So expanding our country and making a bigger country will naturally increase these values. So this is a long-term, increasing your income is a long-term thing. You never tactically manage your economy by increasing your income. It's always a long-term process of increasing income, developing your country and expanding your country and optimizing your country and stuff and getting new technologies and things. Long-term process, income. Short-term is expenses. You can tactically adjust your expenses to increase your balance. So we could look through what are we paying our taxes on? Well, we have a certain amount of state maintenance. That's just, there's nothing we can do about that. Our provinces have a little bit of maintenance that we need to pay in. They give us plenty of money in taxation, but we need to spend a little bit of that in just investing and maintaining the land that we own. That's all that is. That's all that is. So state maintenance, and we can't do anything about that. We have fort maintenance here. Okay, it says we're spending 4 ducats. We have paying 4 maintenance for 4 fortresses, of which 0 are currently mothballed. Okay, so we're spending 4 ducats a month, which is a huge amount of ducats. Because if we weren't paying for these fortifications, we would be making 6 a month. That's huge, right? We'd easily be able to hire all the advisors. So what's the dealio with these forts? Oh wait, I see fort symbols on the map. So we have a fort in this province, and in this province, and in this province. And we can start to think about, and I think we might have a fort in Paris as well. Let's click on Paris. No. Where's our other fort? Well, there is a fort map mode down here, fort levels. Click on that. Oh, what we have in Paris is what's called a capital fort. It's a free fort. It's a level 1 capital fort. But the real actual fortifications that cost money to maintain, this is a level 2 fortification over here. And then these forts are very important in wartime. We actually have a fort down here. I just noticed that from the fort map mode, right? So it's showing a little bit, they sort of permeate, the forts sort of exert an influence on neighboring nations and create, essentially what they're doing is they're creating a zone of control, and they're creating a protection of sort of the areas. And in war, these fortifications create obstacles for enemy movement. So having fortifications slows down enemy movement. There's a fort over here that's actually bordered with Burgundy. That could be very important. It's also in the hills, which is a good defensive area. You want your fortifications to be in defensive areas. Because if there's going to be a bottleneck here, and we're going to be fighting in this region, it's going to be good if we have literally the high ground, right? The defensive advantage. This is actually a farmland, flat area. This is not a good place to be fighting battles typically, as the defender. Whereas over here in Carcassonne, we have hills. So it almost makes sense that, hey, maybe we'd want to actually move the fort over here. But the truth is, Aragon kind of likes us, and Castile's an ally. We might not really care much about our southern flank. So we could actually go here and we could actually delete. We can open up this building thing. I could delete this fort, which is costing us $1 ducat a month. We're going to delete that one just for fun and see what that does to our economy. Hey, we're making 3 ducats a month. We now only have 3 fortifications. This fort over here is kind of in the middle of our country. It's not really on the border. This one's actually kind of bordering England up here. This one's kind of like, what is it doing? We have all of these other sort of buffer zones around here. We have Provence as a buffer zone. These guys are buffer zone. You know what? I'm going to probably... And France is a very powerful country. Like, we're going to be able to do our... We don't need forts to defend ourselves. We are going to be able to just defend ourselves with our standing armies and intercept the enemy more actively. We're going to be more of an aggressive nation than a defensive nation regardless. So I'm going to get rid of this one too. So that's... Oh, our money's going up. Now these other ones, it's saying something about mothballing. Mothballed forts. What does that mean? Let's go to these forts over here. We're not currently at war. We are at peace. We actually haven't even talked about that. We are currently at peace. In this game, war is an active process. You actively go to war and you become in a war state. Right now, everybody's at peace in the entire world. And we're not at war with England. It's a state to go here, go to England and say, declare war. Declare war on England. Okay? And we can see exactly what this would mean. We could just go in with a reconquest war against England. Boom, boom, boom. Except we can't declare war in the first month. We have to wait a month to declare war on England. And this is a process of declaring. So right now we're at peace. England, and if England was to declare war on us, it would tell us, hey, they're declaring war on you. So England can't come in here and sneak attack us very easily. And we have troops right here next to Paris. So we can move them over here if we wanted to too. So we can move our troops around. There's no issue there. And we can brace for an attack against England and so on and so forth, or an aggressive war against England. So we don't really need this fort being maintained right now and costing us the maximum amount of ducats. But I do want to keep this fort behind. This fort could be useful, right? It's right on the border with England. So we can come down here on the province screen that has a fort. There's a button down here. Here's the fort symbol. And there's a checkbox right here. And we could say, hey, this fort is fully maintained, costing us $1 ducat a month. If we check that off, it's saying this fort is now mothballed. It's costing us 0.5 ducats a month, so it's half cost. It's half cost, however, it is completely ineffective. This fortification is not behaving as a fort. It is not behaving as a fort. It's just a regular province, so it will not create an inhibitor to enemy movement. But there's no enemies right now. We're at peace, right? There's only like diplomatic enemies, not military enemies right at this moment. This is a very important fort. We could leave this one up, honestly, because Burgundy and Savoy here. I mean, this is a good fort on our western eastern border. But I think for the most part, we will mothball it as well, for the sake of maximizing our economy. Certain countries, you're not going to want to do that because they're less powerful. But with powerful nations, usually you're going to be the aggressor. Savoy's not going to attack us. It would be suicide for Savoy to attack us. Burgundy won't attack us either. Because we're more powerful than Burgundy. But Burgundy is still someone that eventually might try to leverage an alliance network that would allow them to attack us. But it will take them years to do that. It's not... Things happen slowly in this game. Things happen slowly in this game. So let's go back to our economy tab here. For some reason, it's showing England's diplomatic mode. But let's go to the economy tab. We're now making 5 ducats a month. Just managing our forts, our fort expenses. We still have 2 forts ready to flip on at time of war. And we have a capital fort. We have a free fort in Paris. So we have forts. We have defensive measures. We're totally fine on that sense. And we have a great standing army and a lot of vassals to defend us as well. And each of these vassals have capital forts too. So forts all over the place in France. But we have now reduced that expense, that fort maintenance, significantly, and increased our monthly balance quite a bit. And we now have that. We have that money to play with. We can go and hire advisors. We're over here. It says that. Expenses over here, where's the expenses for advisors? Right at the top. We're not paying anything for advisors, but if we start adding on advisors, that'll start cutting into our balance, but now we'll still have hopefully a positive balance. We can see down here that there's some sliders if we had missionaries being active. Missionaries essentially help create religious harmony and unity within provinces that have different religions. We haven't talked much about religion, to be honest. Hasn't been much of a factor. And part of that is because most of Europe is actually all harmonized already as Catholic. In fact, all of these countries in Europe are strictly Catholic at the beginning of the game, but that will radically change as the game, as history unfolds. We don't have any corruption, so we're not paying anything to root out corruption. We do have naval maintenance and army maintenance. Now we can slide these bars around, and if we slide it all the way down, our troops are completely incapable of fighting, and it'll take them months to sort of retrain themselves and get into fighting, get fit, right? They'll kind of slack off and get unfit. By maintaining them, they're ready to go. They're being trained, they're ready to go. They're staying fit. If we don't pay them, we can make a huge amount of money per month not paying them. But I think we need them standing by, to be honest. Things can happen very quickly between France and England. So having the army ready to go is fine. We're still making good money. The fleet's actually kind of important. We haven't talked about the fleet, but down here's our navy in the Mediterranean right now. And we have ports, right? We have ports over here in sort of in Gascony, a little bit north of there in these provinces. I don't know what these regions of France would be called. But so we could send the ships over here if we want them to be more postured to help us against England and defend these waters in a war against England. The thing is, England has an incredibly powerful navy. We could see here that we have two different navies right now. We can combine them or split them or separate them however we want. We have 2 heavy ships, 4 light ships, and 8 transports. So we can transport, each transport can transport 1,000 troops. So we could put of these 12,000 dudes, we could put 8,000 of them on the boats, and send them to England, for example. And that might be really smart or really dumb, depending on England's ability to repel that kind of an invasion. And England would certainly be able to repel such a weak invasion. So quite honestly, that actually brings up kind of an interesting point. We're not paying a lot for our Navy. It's a relatively low part of our income. We might want to expand the Navy because England has a very, as we know just historically, right? Ruler of the seas, England just as a historical legacy has an incredibly powerful navy. Part of their ability to actually take this land from mainland France is due to their powerful navy and so on and so forth. England has one of the most powerful nations in the world, navies in the world, and we can see that. We can look that up and research that before we decide to make decisions about production, right? But we're trying to figure out what our economic situation is before we really know. Do we want to build more troops? Do we want to build more navy? What do we want to do in that sense? I mean, what we could do is we could reduce army maintenance a little bit. It just kind of depends. Here. Let's go back to the advisors. I think we've done pretty much all that we can do here. Let's go back to the advisors. We have a strong claim right now. Actually, the court screen, we came here because of the advisors, right? We have free advisor slots. It brings us to the court thing. And we can start to see who's actually in charge of our country. We have King Charles VII. And we have Louis. Louis is the heir. King Charles is a 4-skill administrator, a 2-skill diplomatic, and a 4-skill military. These are the ruler's abilities. This is our leadership, like the strength of our leadership. And you can see that advisors, this is the administrative advisor. So he'll increase the administrative skill of our leadership. Makes sense. We haven't talked a lot about what these monarch points do, but these are currencies that accumulate and can be spent. One of the main things that they can do is they can improve our technologies. So if you're familiar with like a civilization or whatever, obviously gaining new technologies is very, very important. So gaining military technologies is very important. Having military skill and having that attribute to an allowance of military power every month, letting that accumulate so that we can buy military technologies naturally. Very, very, very important. Oh, this is interesting. We can get a couple really good advisors here. These guys will increase our military skill per month by 1. This guy is a morale of armies advisor, and this guy is a discipline advisor. They're both going to cost us 1 ducat a month. We can now afford that. This guy's too expensive at 4 ducats a month, and he also costs 65 just to hire him. We only have 61 ducats at the start of the game, but we're going to be making some ducats every month. But 4 ducats a month, this guy would be like our full allowance, would just be hiring this guy, and he's only 2. So instead of just getting him at 2, we might as well get one of each if we can get the cheaper dudes. But morale of armies is very good. This is like the HP. This is like how long our troops are willing to fight in battle. The more morale they have, the longer they hold their ground. The longer they fight, the more health they have. Discipline is like how effective they are. The more disciplined the troops are, the more effective they are in combat. So they're just going to do more damage and take less damage, and that's good. In fact, we're the French. We have a very disciplined army. We're one of the only nations in the world that has a standing army, actually historically at this time. So it makes sense that we have a very professional, disciplined, professional army. I like it. And then we can look for a diplomatic option. Oh, increase spy network construction speed by plus 25%. We are trying to build a spy network against England. Could be worth it to have this guy to help bolster that. Or we have a diplomatic reputation guy, which will give us a higher We saw how diplomatic reputation was one of the factors in Castile wanting to ally us. Having a higher diplomatic reputation will just make all of those diplomatic interactions easier. Either one of these would be fantastic. But I think for right now, actually, we'll get the spy network guy. This is costing us a little bit of a signing bonus to hire these guys, so we're losing money. And then, plus 10% national tax modifier. This guy's actually relatively cheap. He's a level 2, but he's a half cost level 2, which is unique. This guy's a historical guy for France. However, it's still going to be quite a bit per month. And I think we're just going to go with the cheapy guy here. Although the funny thing is, this cheapy guy, he costs more to hire initially, but he's less per month. 10% national tax modifier. This guy's almost going to pay for himself, right? We're making about 9 ducats a month from taxation. If we increase that by 10%, he might pay his whole salary. That's really cool. And then, of course, the net gain will be the administrative skill, which is very important. These monarch points, all I can say is insanely important. When it comes to our leadership, it's important to note, okay, well, is a 424, is that even good? Is that terrible? Like, what is the range of skill, right? Well, it's 0 to 6. A 3 is an average. A 0 is the worst that you could have a 0 military prowess. Or you could have a 6, which is like the best. So a 424 is decisively above average. Our heir is a 432. That is decisively average. so our king is slightly above average, and or is definitely above average. And our heir is actually our heir is basically average. If you take this 4 and you add that, you take 1 off of that and you add it to the military, it's a 333. That's right in the middle of the road. And that's honestly, to be fair, average is good, because the last thing you want is to be Castile, where if we go look at their leadership, they have a 112, which is terrible. But if we look at their heir, it's a 000. Enrique over here is one of the worst leaders in the entire world, except for he's just an heir right now. So there's a chance that he gets killed in combat or dies out on a hunting accident, or something can happen to Enrique, and Castile might actually want to facilitate that. You can actually disinherit heirs too if you have one of the DLCs, but we can't do that here. But no, our heir is totally fine. He's got a strong claim. He's got a high legitimacy, a strong claim to the throne. 21 years old. He's ready to take over. You have to be 15 years old to lead the nation. So it's not going to be too bad. So that's our leadership there. So we've looked at our leadership. We've got our advisors set that took care of one of those banners. We've looked at our economy. We're making 2.78 ducats per month. Plus we have those leaders, which is really, really good. We have no inflation. So remember how this person was talking about, this other advisor was saying they would reduce inflation. We don't have any inflation. I'm just noticing that up here. It's not going up. It's no inflation issues. As the game goes on, we'll notice inflation accumulating in various ways and stuff, but there's no inflation right now. Inflation certainly is a bad thing because it just makes everything cost more, right? If we hire more troops, we have to pay them more, so on and so forth. Trade is something we haven't talked about, but we know that trade feeds into our economy, right? It's saying trade here is we're making 2.2 ducats a month from trade. In fact, over here it says 4.4, but this hasn't updated yet. Next month, this will probably be the 2.2. So this will change when we go into December. When we unpause the game, this will update. At the beginning of the game, this is a little bit wacky, but this is just basically, this is nothing we can really do here. This is just a summary of why we're making the money that we're making. If you really want to focus on trade and look at our trade situation, which I can't stress enough, as a new player, trading is not important. Trade is basically a passive process, but I will show you how to at least set up your trade so that we know that it is being logical and being somewhat efficient at the beginning of the game and not doing anything silly. So let's go to the trade map mode. And this is how you look at trade, is from the trade map mode. And it's very overwhelming here. We can see that the world is broken into a lot of different sort of painted sections. We got the Bordeaux section, the Champagne section, the English Channel, Lubeck, Seville, so on and so forth, right? We have these different, the world is broken up into different what we call trade regions. And what's going on here is the production in these elements, the trade that's going on in this region is accumulating to a total amount of profits or goods movement or whatever. It's creating wealth. The trade in this area is creating wealth. And some of that, it's the goods that are being produced, the silks and the cloths and the wines and the whatever is being produced. And that's being moved through the world. It's being traded through the world. Some of it's staying behind. And some of it's getting pushed into different various nodes. In this case, there's a symbol right here. It's very hard to see, but we do have two traders. And we can see that one's in Bordeaux and one's in Rhineland. We'll have to see if that makes sense. The only way that we can affect how much money we make from trade in the short term, in the tactical sense, not in a long-term strategic sense. Like we'll get better trade control if we conquer more land, right? Like Brittany, like we obviously have a big chunk of this Bordeaux area, but Brittany controls a big chunk of it too. In fact, we can see some of these provinces are more important than others. These are important trade centers. England has Bordeaux, the actual province of Bordeaux is controlled by England. This is an important trade center in the Bordeaux node, obviously because it's named after this area. So we know that this is a really important province. It has a natural harbor, has an estuary. So these areas enhance these are disproportionately important provinces for gaining power and influence over this node. We can see here that we only have 18% control over this money. 18% control over this money. If we had 100% control over this money, all this money would be able to be bent to our will and ultimately somewhat collected, but also pushed to where we want to push it. Our main trade center is actually, since our capital is in Paris, and that is in the Champagne region, our trade center is here in the Champagne region. So we can see here that we have and we only have 18% here. So what we're doing is we're collecting here. We earn 2.3 ducats here in Champagne. 2.3 ducats. So we're trying to push over some of the money over here. And we're pushing over some of it into Champagne to make this stronger. There's 7.1 ducats here. We can see some of it's leaving. We got 1.7 ducats going down Genoa. That's money lost, right? That's money we don't want to be leaving the node. And this is 1.73 ducats going up to the English Channel. So this is money that's being pulled away from the Champagne region. We want it all staying in the Champagne region. And the way that we can do that is we can accumulate more strength over this region, right? Other people are exerting their strength in order to pull it down. We only have 18% control. And again, you can see here that clearly a lot of this is owned by Burgundy. And anytime we go to a map mode, I apologize for not mentioning this very clearly at the beginning. Anytime we go to a map mode, we get lost. We need to go back to the political map mode. Political map mode is how you find the main screen. This is the main way to look at the game and to see all the countries broken into their different bits. So we're always flipping between these two. I mean, flipping back to the political, whether we're looking at diplomatic, trade, or political, right? So if we go back to trade, we can see that a lot of this is actually owned by Burgundy. So we really, it makes sense that we only have 18% here. So we're going to want more control over this area to be able to accumulate more. Instead of the 2.3 ducats, we should be earning 7 ducats, maybe even more than 7 ducats, etc. We have 3%. We have a trader moving from Champagne, transferring to Champagne from the Rhineland. Only 0.28 ducats are being moved. That's literally nothing. That's pathetically weak. That's pathetically weak. So this guy's basically doing nothing over here. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to let him double down. I'm going to move this guy, and I'm going to move this guy from the Rhineland, and I'm going to click on Champagne. I want him collecting in Champagne. Traders, essentially, what they do is traders enhance your influence over the individual node. So this guy's going to come here, and he's going to add more. This percentage is going to go up because he's going to be working at home. And most of this money was getting pushed over just by other people. So we'll let other people push this money over, and we'll focus on just trying to take more control over this core central point. The truth is, as we get influence over other areas, we could try to collect in other nodes as well, and so on and so forth. Right now, we're pushing from Bordeaux to Champaign, and then we're collecting in Champaign, and we're using a merchant to double down and to get a little bit more influence in this mode, have them actively working. We're limited to 2 merchants, but as we play the game, we'll get more and more merchants. And once we have more merchants, we might want a merchant pushing from the Rhineland. We might want a merchant pushing from the New World, right? We might want merchants. You can see all these trade routes coming from the New World that have yet to be discovered. You know, and we can move our trade capital around eventually as well in the future and stuff. But it's all very slow. It's a slow build. It's not something that we're micromanaging. What we've just done with our traders right there, realigning our traders to do something a little bit. Well, next month we'll see if that increases our trade income from 2.2 to some other number. We'll see if that was a good change or not. We'll see that next month. So we'll have to manage it a little bit at the beginning, but then ultimately it's going to sit there for decades. Like it'll be decades before we go back to the trade map mode and really care to play around with that. Trade is not something that we are tactically messing around with. The way that you manage your economy tactically is your expenses. That's how you manage your economy tactically. Everything else is a long-term, slow burn. Okay. There we go. We've looked at our leadership. We've looked at our economy. We've looked at our trade. We've looked at our estates in the first episode as part of our diplomatic and political situation as France, our standing in the world, internally and externally. Now what we need to do is we need to think more like production and like goals, right? What are going to be our goals? How do we achieve those goals? How do we scout out other countries? Where do we see the opportunities to start to work on those goals? And of course, one of our goals is attack England. So we need to learn about how do we do that? How do we prepare for that? How do we scout that out? Do we need to build more ships? Do we need to build more troops? And we will be talking about production and goals and war and or at least preparing for war in the next episode. We still have not yet unpaused the game. We're just purely looking at, like I said, we've looked at our external diplomatic situation, internal economy and political situation, and now we're going to be looking at production and moving towards war in the next episode. Thanks everybody for being here, and I will see you guys in the next one. Of course, there's a playlist for all the episodes so that you can make sure to catch them by checking out the playlist, making sure that I'll get you to the next episode, and also, of course, subscribing helps a lot. Thanks everybody for being here, though, guys. Oh, comments are actually the best, guys. If you guys just want to drop a comment, ask a question, I read all the comments. I respond to 99% of them. So I read all of them, and I respond to the vast majority of them. Especially if it's a question, I respond to all the questions. Thanks everybody for being here and hanging out with us today. I will see you guys in the next one.